we're gonna dig right into it. We are changing the sprocket on the 22 KLR650. Now, I'm going to explain a little bit on what changing the sprocket does. I'm not going to go into too deep of detail. There is a really good article that I'll leave a link down in the description to that explains the gearing ratios. Pretty much any question that you would have to why would I change the gearing, you know, versus what would happen if I changed the back sprocket versus the front. All that is in the website that I'll link down in the description. Everything is explained there. So I'll just go through it real quick and explain why I'm changing my sprocket and what the benefits for me are going to be. Alright, so to sum it up real quick, the gearing ratio of the size of your motorcycle is the ratio between the two sprockets. It is measured between the number of teeth between the two. So the rear sprocket has 43, the front has 15. The front sprocket is normally about 3 times smaller than the rear. The ratio reveals how fast the front sprocket can spin the rear. So if you want to change the gearing ratio on your bike, all you gotta do is just change one of the sprockets. So by changing the sprocket, you're changing the gear ratio, and it can adjust the top speed, the acceleration, and fuel mileage of the bike. So you can either gear up or gear down. Installing a bigger rear sprocket with a smaller front sprocket is you're gearing down. So in my case, we're going with a bigger front sprocket. We're going from the 15 tooth to the 16 tooth. So what that does is it lowers the gear ratio, which is known as taller gearing. It'll give us a higher top speed at any given engine RPM, but this does lead to a slower acceleration. So I'll have more top end. I'll be able to have the bike go faster in the long run, but the acceleration won't be as quick, but it will have better fuel mileage. So there is many things to take into consideration when picking a gearing ratio for the bike. It's not just figuring out, you know, what size sprocket you want. Luckily with the 22 KLR650, there's been plenty of people who have had great success with switching to the 16-tooth sprocket. So I have this chart here. I'm going to talk a little bit about gearing ratio a little bit. I'm not going to go into it too much. Like I said, everything will be on that website. Everything is explained really well. But in a nutshell, for the stock configuration of the KLR650 with a 15-tooth front sprocket and a 43-tooth rear sprocket, we are at a 2.87 gear ratio, which is kind of right in the middle. I can see why they went with that, because it gives you the combination of good acceleration, some okay top speed. So it is kind of right smack dab in the middle of where you'd want it to be if you're giving out to a mass market. Now by changing the front sprocket to a 16-tooth, we are going with a 2.69 gear ratio, which is going to allow us to have a higher top speed with a lower engine RPM for the reason of taking the bike on longer trips on the highways and stuff like that. So it's going to gear a little bit more towards highway use. I'm going to do a comparison of the stock 15-tooth versus the new 16-tooth. I'll do some highway and stuff like that. So we'll do highway and some top speed runs, and we'll see what we get difference-wise.
So we got the 15-tooth sprocket in the stock form. I have 3 modes of telling my speed, and I have the trail tachometer to tell me my RPMs. So I have 2 GPS speeds right now going, one with my phone, one with my camera that I have installed on the bike, and the tachometer one. So the stock one. So I'll test highway speeds with RPMs. I know that this is a little bit off because right now this GPS says I'm doing 33, that one says 32, and this says 35. So hopefully between the 3 we can figure it out, and then also when I change it over to the 16-tooth sprocket, we'll be able to figure out if it affects the speedometer of the motorcycle. Alright, so I'm at 75 on the stock display, and I'm reading 72, and I'm at 5,100 RPMs at 75 miles an hour. That's a pretty good highway speed, 75. Between 70 and 75 is what I like to run on the highway. Sometimes I'll bump it up to 80, but it really seems to consume a lot more fuel at above 75. Actually, 75 and above, it definitely does consume more fuel. So, to make it a fair comparison, I'll just keep it at 75. And it seems to be hovering 75, which is 72 miles an hour on my GPS, and which is hovering right around 5,100 RPMs. So 5,100 RPM, 75, 72 miles an hour on the GPSs. They're about 1 mile an hour off from each other. My camera's saying 71, this is saying 72, and that says 75. Bump it up to 75 on the GPS, and that's at 5,300 RPMs, 54. Let's go ahead and open her up a little bit. So there's 93 miles an hour. I'm at 6,500 RPM. The tachometer is saying, or the digital stock gauge is saying 98. Yeah, she's just hovering at 98, which is 94 miles an hour on my GPS. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I will swap over the Sprocket, and we're going to test it the same exact way. We'll do a highway speeds, and like I said, it was at 51. I'll write it all down so that way everything is very similar.
Talk with your narcissistic neighbor. She's real hot, but they said to never date her. I agree, but you did, and I hate her. You wanna get away? You better get in line. Won't go another day of wasting any time. I've got a lot to say.
Alright, the front sprocket is 92 foot-pounds of torque from what I've found.
Recording.
Alright, forgive my sticky notes everywhere. This is to tell me what, you know, I had the 16 tooth on there, so now oh, come on, cat. I had the 16 tooth sprocket on, so I put that on the dashboard so that way I know when I'm editing this video, I know which footage I'm looking at, you know. So just ignore the 16 tooth sprocket button. I can tell you this already, the speed is now matching my GPS speed. Seems maybe 1 mile an hour off, but it still seems seems a lot closer than what it was before. So let's get on the highway and see what our highway speeds are looking like. All right, let's see how it is pulling out. All right, fifth gear, 65. I'm at 4,400 RPMs. Bump it up to 70. Yeah, see at 70 I'm at 4,800. So the RPMs definitely are lower. The GPS is still off just a little bit. 71, so it's still off just a little bit, but I can definitely tell the RPMs are a lot lower because we're at 4,800 at 71 miles an hour. I'll bump it up to 75. So 75 on the GPS, 73, I'm still at 4,900. There's 5,000 RPM right there. There's 51 and I'm at 68 miles an hour. So the RPMs do seem to be lower at 75 miles an hour. I'll get it up to 80 after this little stretch. Well, it's still wheelies. Oh, there goes, trying to find sixth gear. So, alright, here's 80 miles an hour on the GPS, 79.
Intercom failed. Try again later.
Okay, 79 on the dash, 80 miles an hour on GPS speed. We're at 5,300. Alright, let's go ahead and open her up and see what she'll top out at. The top speed last time was 95. Seems like we gained 1 mile per hour. Which, I mean, this is not a top speed bike, you know. I'm not going to be running it at... Oh, wait, there's 98. Okay, well, that's because I started getting a backdraft off of that truck. But we're still at 98, and at 98 miles an hour, we're at 6,400. And it's pinned. I can't give her any more. Yeah, see, we're starting to slow back down now because I'm in the open air. And it's not a weight issue because I got the panniers off, the top case off. We're on a low tank of gas. Now I'm, you know, 175 pounds. She tops out about 96 with my fat butt on it. Yeah, I can't really tell the difference between the 15 tooth and the 16 tooth on riding it wise. I'm pretty sure the acceleration is not as good as it was. But that's fine. It's a KLR. Who's looking for acceleration, right? Oh, my back tire spun. The ground's a little bit wet. I can't get it up. Nope. The tire just spins. Yeah, so 70, 72, I'm at 40, 47, 4,800 RPM. So it did bring the RPMs down a little bit, and that's what I was looking for at these highway speeds, to bring those RPMs down, you know, because I'm going to be cruising at 75, 80 miles an hour on the highway. So at 75, I'm at 5,000 RPM. So I'm not sure what it was before, but I have the footage, so I can notice how much it drops. So at 75 miles an hour, it is at 5,000 RPM.
the 15 tooth versus the 16 tooth, things I've noticed just riding around, it is about 200 to 400 revolutions per minute, RPMs, lower with the new 16 tooth front sprocket. So at 75 miles an hour, it was giving me a reading of 5100 RPMs, and then with the 16 tooth, it would at 75 miles an hour give me a reading of 4900 in between there. There's many different variables and things like that that can change that, but just my noticing, it was between 200 to 400 RPMs difference. Now it's not that much of a gain, but I think it'll help the longevity of the bike and lasting as long as possible, because I do plan on taking this on cross-country road trips. So with all that being said, I want to thank you guys for watching. Be sure you're following along, subscribe to the channel. There's more things coming, big things coming with this little channel. So thank you. And for the people that are still here, got a little sneak peek for you. Boom. Yoshi. This is what's coming up next. Be sure to stay tuned. I'm Throttle Junkie. Hope you have a wonderful day.